Right, let's dive straight into this explainer. What if you could somehow take all the unpredictable, messy chaos of life and boil it down into a single, no-nonsense manual? You know, a playbook that cuts through all the noise and just tells you exactly how to endure. Well, today that's exactly what we're going to do. We're drawing entirely from the unflinching, profound observations of Ernest Hemingway. We're taking his starkest, most honest words and weaving them into a direct roadmap for navigating this incredibly complex thing called life. Now, Hemingway establishes the absolute, unavoidable stakes right from the jump. He says, "Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one man from another." We all share that exact same destination, right? There is literally no escaping it. And when you truly let that sink in, you realize the only actual currency we have in this world, the only thing that sets you apart from anyone else, are the details. The day-to-day choices, how you treat people, how you handle a crisis, those details are everything. Which naturally brings us to the ultimate question for all of us. How do you make sure those details actually matter? When the dust finally settles, how do you curate a life that's genuinely worth remembering? Throughout the rest of this explainer, we're going to let Hemingway be our mentor. We'll walk step by step through his framework for a life lived fully, honestly, and absolutely without regret. So let's start with Section 1, Facing a Broken World, the brutal reality of life. Because look, before we can figure out how to live, we have to ground ourselves in the reality of the world we're actually living in. Hemingway, as you probably know, never sugarcoated a thing. He acknowledged this universal, undeniable truth. The world breaks everyone. It's just a fundamental guarantee of the human experience. You're going to face loss, failure, heartbreak. But what's truly fascinating here is how he completely reframes that inevitable trauma. The breaking isn't the end of your story. Actually, it's the absolute foundation of your future strength. You don't just heal and go back to who you were. If you endure it right, you become stronger exactly where you were fractured. And this thought right here brilliantly illustrates the beauty hidden inside that tragedy. See, this isn't just about building up some tough, impenetrable outer shell. It's about becoming open. Our flaws, our deep scars, our fractures, they're exactly what allow us to experience real empathy. That brokenness is what lets the light in. It allows us to genuinely connect with other people who are navigating the exact same harsh reality. It literally transforms pain into profound connection. Okay, moving right along to Section 2, Finding Grace Under Pressure. Now that we've accepted the tragedy of life, let's look at the active day-to-day mechanics of surviving it. This is arguably one of his most powerful distinctions, and honestly, it changes everything when you grasp it. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. The world might physically destroy you. It might bankrupt your business, ruin your plans, completely tear down everything you've spent decades building. But your internal spirit, what Hemingway famously called grace under pressure, that remains entirely yours. Destruction is an external event that happens to you. Defeat is an internal choice. You literally only lose when you consent to being defeated. So what's the actual cost of losing that grace under pressure? 2 years. Hemingway actually calculated that if you indulge in just a little bit of worry every single day, you will lose a literal 2 years of your life over your lifespan. Just think about that for a second. 2 entire years of your existence, completely gone, just burned up by the useless friction of anxiety. That is a massive tax on a life that's already incredibly short. So how do we get those stolen years back? Hemingway gives us 2 intensely practical Stoic steps. Step 1, if something's wrong and you actually have the power to fix it, do it. Take action immediately. Step 2, if you absolutely cannot fix it, you must ruthlessly train yourself not to worry. Why? Because worry has never fixed a single thing in the history of the world. It just steals your present moment. It's all about asserting total control over exactly where you spend your mental energy. Let's pivot to our third section, navigating love and friendship. Look, we can't survive all this pressure alone, right? So we really need to understand what kinds of companions actually sustain us over the long haul. Hemingway had this very eclectic, highly specific list of things he believed you needed to enrich the journey. He speaks really deeply about the profound loneliness of outliving a good spouse. He reminds us there's no friend quite as loyal and steadfast as a good book. He insists that experiencing Paris as a young person is this movable feast that just stays in your soul forever. And perhaps most surprisingly for the ultimate stereotypical macho writer of the 20th century, cats. Seriously, why cats?
Well, Hemingway noticed that human beings, for a whole variety of complicated societal and personal reasons, will inevitably wear masks. We hide our true feelings, we compromise. But a cat? A cat possesses absolute, unflinching emotional honesty. If a cat doesn't like you, you know it instantly. And he brilliantly uses the unapologetic nature of an animal to challenge us. He's urging us to demand that exact same unvarnished, absolute truth from our own human relationships.
But those deep human relationships, they come with a profound danger. Hemingway warns that the most painful thing in life is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much and completely forgetting that you are special too. I really want you to reflect on that in your own life for a second. True companionship should elevate you. It should absolutely never require you to sacrifice your fundamental identity or your self-worth. Okay, let's transition and see how all of this builds into our daily routines with Section 4, the art of true work. This is all about the absolute necessity of taking deliberate action. When it comes to work, Hemingway issued this vital warning: never confuse movement with action. Man, we see this all the time today, don't we? Movement is just aimless motion. It's busy work. It's answering trivial emails for 3 hours just to feel productive, or, constantly reorganizing your desk. Action, on the other hand, is deliberate, meaningful progression toward a difficult goal. Action requires courage, while movement is just a really comfortable place to hide. And how do you actually sustain that deliberate action over a lifetime? You work every day, no matter what happened the day or night before. You get up and you bite on the nail. I just love the sheer unapologetic grit of that concept. Bite on the nail. It requires this relentless dedication to your craft. No matter your emotional hangover, no matter the catastrophic setbacks you faced yesterday, you wake up, you bite down hard on the reality of the morning, and you just do the work. But what's the actual end game of all this exhausting hard work? Well, Hemingway believed there is absolutely nothing noble about being superior to your fellow man. Seeking cheap validation through external competition or tearing other people down, that's a total trap. True nobility is being superior to your former self, competing against who you were yesterday, and pushing for your own internal personal growth. That is literally the only metric of success that actually matters. Which brings us to our fifth and final section, growing old without regret. How do we successfully approach the final chapters of this incredible journey? First off, we have to completely debunk a massive societal myth. The great fallacy, according to Hemingway, is the innate wisdom of old men. He argued that people don't automatically grow wise just by accumulating years. They merely grow careful. They end up trading their boldness and their passion for a life totally paralyzed by caution and the constant fear of losing what they have. So what's his solution to aging? It's this incredibly provocative, beautiful thought. To become a master in your old age isn't about accumulating cautious, quiet wisdom. It's about intentionally fighting every single day to retain the reckless, unapologetic courage of youth. It's about having the guts to leap into the unknown, just like you did as a child, long before the world aggressively taught you to be afraid. As we near the end of our explainer, we face this deeply heavy, yet surprisingly optimistic truth. The real reason for not committing suicide is because you always know how swell life gets again after the hell is over. It's this profound reminder that enduring the dark always, eventually leads back to the light. The hell will end, the storm will break, and life will get wonderfully swell again. You just have to make sure you're still standing in the arena to see it. The first and final thing you have to do in this world is to last it and not be smashed by it. Endure the breaks. Demand absolute emotional honesty. Never confuse meaningless movement with true action. And whatever you do, do not let this world smash your spirit. Use this manual, cultivate that grace under pressure, and make the details of your life unforgettable. Which leaves just one final question for you. When your final chapter is written, what will your details say about you?